In this video, I want to offer a couple additional tips about the calculation workspace environment. So I'm in one of FileMaker's Starter Solutions, and I'm going to go ahead and jump up to File, Manage Database right here, or use the keyboard shortcut. So I can see that I'm on the Fields tab by default for Assets, which corresponds to the layout I was just in. If I want to create a new calculation field, I'll just call it Test. Select Calculation and then press Create. So we're back to our calculation workspace. First off, a couple things to point out. This left pane here and this right pane here, well, they are resizable, right? So you can resize them to fit your needs. You can also turn off the right pane if you feel you don't need it. Additionally, as you look at the fields over here, you'll notice a couple interesting things. First off, you can sort the fields by a different name here, which is interesting. You can also see the kind of field it is. Of course, that's a text field, that's a date field, that's a container field, a number field, etc. So as I mentioned in other videos, it's important to select the proper output for this calculation. Once again, the calculation output at its most basic level can be text, of course, a number field, a date, time field, timestamp, and container. Now, let me give you a couple tips about dealing with dates and times. And this is just a little bit of under the hood about how FileMaker thinks. If I want to input the current date into a calculation, I can type get, and then I can say current, and then you'll get all the matches here with the search, and I'll select current date. Now this generates the current date in FileMaker. It's not text, it's not a number, it's a date. It's a special internal format within FileMaker. So if you want to do some sort of calculation with the date field, you could always do something like, is this date greater than, say, maybe some other date that's in our system, like the date checked in right here. And so that would tell you it's a yes or a no. And realistically, what I would recommend that you do is go ahead and use the if statement over here. You input your test right here. And then, of course, you would have your positive results here and your negative results here. Now, the positive result might be, this is great, and maybe there's no message if it's not great. So it could be text. So this, if this is true, then the text great comes out. If we're sending text out of it, this has to be text then. Makes sense? Now, here's where it gets more interesting. If I say get current date again, right? Let's try that all over. Get current date. And I would say I want to pick a day that's 30 days in the future, or pick a day that's 5 days in the future. All you have to do is do math here. And what's important to understand is that each unit that you provide to the date field represents one day. So this is the current date plus 5 more days into the future, right? And of course, if you do this, then you're expecting to get out a date. The date will be in the future by whatever increment, but it's a date. We have to output it as date right here, okay? Very important. So when it comes out as a calculation, FileMaker will see it as a date for what it really is. Now, in some situations, you might want to use the date as part of some text. So what I'm going to do is move this down a little bit for the moment. So what I'm going to write is get as text. Now notice right here, I didn't format it correctly, but FileMaker was still able to do the search for me. So as I mentioned in the last video, I don't have the exact syntax of every function memorized, but I knew enough of it so I could get the search to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this right here. Make sure it's like that. And then what you can do is you could put this up here. Makes sense? What this does is takes the current date, adds 5 days, and it's in this date format. Then this get as text converts it to straight text. So it would no longer be recognized as a date field. It would just be something that looks like a date, but it's a string of text. Very important. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to select text right here. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say OK. And then probably down here at the bottom, it always sticks the file. So right now we're shooting this video. It's the first part of March, and it's added 5 days in the future. This is text right here. It looks like a date, but it's not. Now understand that time fields work the same way. If I go back to define fields, I can go back into test, and I will tell you that when you're dealing with time, it's the same, except when you're adding numbers to time, you're adding seconds. So if you had a function where you said get, and then I said current time, and I wanted to add an hour to it, well, an hour is not 1 hour. It's not 60 minutes. It's actually 60 seconds for every 60 minutes, or I think it's like 3,600. So 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. If that makes sense, right? So that's one way you could create a time that's 1 hour in the future. And of course, at this point, the time format is here. And then this just adds to that time format. So it would be time. So if we wanted to use this as text somewhere, you might want to think about using the get as text function, right? So date and time have very specific behavior in the FileMaker platform. These couple tips should help point you in the right direction as you proceed forward in learning how to write your own calculations.